Orlando, thank you for coming on the podcast, bro. It's good to see you.
Likewise, bro. Thanks for having me.
Anytime, dude. Anytime. It's if anyone listening, Orlando and I actually met probably about a year ago now.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, in a coffee shop on the Gold Coast. I remember reaching out to you randomly through a connection through somebody else because I saw that you had a lot of followers, and I was like, oh, this guy is very intriguing. And I think you were closing at the time, and you were doing a few little bits and pieces, but you were transferring into, I guess, what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And so for anyone who's listening who doesn't know you, what are you doing right now? What's a little bit about your story?
Yeah. So right now, like all around the high ticket sales space.
Yep.
So I have a coaching company where I help guys transition into high ticket sales, or if they've kind of been sold the dream, just like help them get better, help them actually do well in it. That's one side. And then the other side is I work with an influencer. He's like a business coach for fitness coaches. So then I also sell that and manage the sales team there. But yeah, I've been doing that in that online education space for the last like 5 years now. And yeah, those are the main two things. But it's funny because we met at the coffee shop. You said I had a lot of followers, but bro, I had like 200 followers at the time.
Yeah,
like,
no. Well, there's that account. There was also another account. We had like 20K.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
We'll probably get into that. Yeah, so that was my old account.
Yes. Yeah. And it was fascinating because you had that 20K. You had like a couple posts, and I was like, oh, I wonder like what all this is about, and where you are, I guess, because you had like high ticket closer in your bio, and I knew about closing because I'm in sales myself, but more in the corporate world, and I was like, oh, I wonder what's going on and where you're transferring to. So it's fascinating to see someone's growth, like I mentioned just before this too, because like when you meet with somebody and then you meet with them like a year later, some people have taken action, some people haven't, some people have moved forward, and it's been great to see you from afar. We've caught up like once since then, but you just slowly, but building the momentum. And it's all happening, bro. So it's good to see.
Thanks. Yeah, when we first caught up, it was like right after my breakup, and I was probably like just like a shell of a person. I was like low confidence, low T, just fucking like down in the dumps. But yeah, just tried my best. Like honestly, when we first met, it was around the start of the time that I just started putting myself out there more. Just like meeting more people, networking more, getting out there. And that was honestly like what helped me grow so much, like not just in Oz, but then overseas and traveling. And yeah, bro. So it was like right at the start of that.
Yeah, the start of the trajectory upwards. Yeah. What do you think was like one of the what was one of the key factors for you getting over that relationship?
It's like cliche, but just like focusing on myself, like, and also getting closer with God. Like I was sort of getting close with God. Like I was starting to read the Bible and stuff even when I was with her. But then when it ended, and I kind of had like no one to like turn to, I turned to God. And like I wouldn't say like I went to church like every weekend or anything like that, but I just started going to Bible studies like every Friday because I came at it from a perspective of like, what can I learn? And I would come to those classes, I would like challenge them. I'd be like, hang on, that doesn't make sense because of this. Or what about this? Or how do you think about this? And they would just give me these different perspectives that really helped. And the biggest thing was just having faith that like it was for a reason. It's for the better. How can I make this not, be the reason that I go downwards, but make this be the reason that I go upwards? And so it was just like, getting in shape, going traveling, building the business. And I just fucking locked in, like just didn't. Girls can be a big distraction, bro. So like just not having that and just like fully focusing on myself, like that helped a lot. Yeah.
No, that's interesting. I know on a piece of your content, maybe 3 to 6 months ago, you're talking about motivation and energy. And I think it was when you may have transferred over to the carnivore diet, and you were talking about how people are asking you like how you're working till like, 1 in the morning. And I think it was when you're just starting to like really go all in on Closer's Cult. Yeah. And it was talking about passion and like being aligned. And I know that's one thing I found this year. I'm really locked back in. Like I'm not drinking until for the first 2 months of the year. Yeah. And I've got like a lot more energy, mostly, I guess, partly because of diet, but partly because I'm aligned. I know where I want to go. And then when you are aligned, I find it's easier to say no to things. Yeah. Right. When you've got the passion and the vision, it's easier to say like, no, no, that's not on path.
100%. Yeah. When I started Closer's Cult, that helped a lot because I started that around June last year. Yep. And like sleep, health, diet, all super important. But in my opinion, the biggest thing is what you said, like that purpose and that alignment. Yeah. Because I've had days where I've had like 3 hours of sleep, and obviously that's not ideal. Like I feel it, but in the short term, like if I've got my purpose aligned, it doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
I'll get through it. But yeah, I tried keto like for a month and then I got off, but just like fruit, meat,
Yep.
stuff like that. But
Yep.
yeah, if you have your purpose set up and you know why you're doing things, even if you're tired, you're fucked, whatever, like it helps a lot. So,
Yeah, I find that. And sometimes it's easier to do it by yourself at the start because you maybe not have met them other people that are on the same trajectory as yourself. And when you're by yourself, it's easier to lock in and remove distractions.
Yeah.
I know that now, even at this time where I'm like not drinking, I have to be very careful with like the people that I go out with per se. Like I'm trying to meet with for a coffee, not for a beer. Just to think little things like that, right? You have to protect your energy at all cost. That's actually why I wear this shirt so much. It's my favorite t-shirt because on the back of it, it says your energy is your greatest asset and protect that shit That's why I consistently wear it because it's a reminder almost to myself.
it actually is, because especially for me, that's actually quite difficult because I love like social events. I love going out. Like, it's very rare if I get invited to something, I say no. But the more that it's happening now, like I do have to be a bit more disciplined with like, oh, now I'm in Gold Coast. This guy wants to catch up. This guy wants to catch up. This guy. Well, it's like, okay, well, I can't catch up with everyone. Like I need to be selective with like what I do, where I go, who I hang out with. So
Correct.
it is important because it's all headspace.
Yes.
Like even the conversations, like it takes up mental real estate. And the more I go, like the more I realize how actually important that is. Because when you got like 100 different things you're working on, and then you have some bullshit here, it's like it's like a parasite, bro. Like in your mind. So you just got to
100%.
protect it. Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Rogan talks about like mental capacity as a battery, and as when you start the day, you have 100%, and as it goes down, like it will wean down to zero.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's also like with the social capacity, it's also something to take into consideration. It's something that I'm very careful with now because at the start, at least a year ago when we met again, going back to that point, I also come out of a breakup as well.
Yeah.
And then 6 months prior to that, I'd been living on the coast, but I'd been with my ex-partner and we'd only really hang out with each other. So then I'd pretty much come into this place, which I'd been living for 6 months, but I didn't know anyone. So it's almost like restarting again. And then you have to, for me, I had to go out and meet all these new people and that was fun. But then once you get to a point, then you have to sort of like either level up yourself or like not maybe level up your network, but you have to, for me, it was level up myself and then be like more selective.
Yeah.
And then once you go to the next level, you either bring people with you or they're coming with you regardless. And then you go to the next level again. And then you have to, for me, at least at that stage, I close off and then be selective to then try and get to that next path.
Yeah.
Chris Williamson talks about it too. Like you're not there yet. So you have to, you're not there at that level. So you can't you can't be giving away your energy.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because like when you're networking, like there's almost levels to networking. It sounds weird, but it's like when you're in the beginning and you don't know anyone, you just have to get to know as many people as possible.
That's right.
And then once you get to that stage, then you can. It's not like the people that you're networking with are a certain quality or whatever, but you get to a phase where you have to know everyone, and then you know everyone, and then it's like, okay, out of those people, who do I hang out with?
Yes.
And then through that, like you become the person that people want to then hang out with.
Correct.
And then that's when you want to become the guy that's worth networking with.
Yes.
But yeah, it takes time.
Yeah, it's a mixture of like the value that you bring, whether it's through your network, your skills, even your company as well, right? There's different ways that people will want to hang out with you for sure, and it's managing that. I guess going back to June when you started Closers Cop, right? You've come out of that relationship for 6 months and you've been building yourself, you've been building the business, you've been sharpening your skills as a closer as well. What were some of the things that you had to change internally from going like the Orlando that come out of the relationship that saw the world a certain way, then to the Orlando that goes, I'm going to build this thing? What were some of the shifts internally that you had to let go of in terms of beliefs?
The biggest shift is that I had to go from a follower to a leader.
Yep.
Like, because I'm not used to being a leader. I wasn't used to being a leader at that point. I'd never led anyone. And when you first start doing it, it's kind of weird because I'd been in the space for years. Like, I knew I was good on a logical level, but it was also imposter syndrome. That was another belief I had to get over. I was like, what are people going to think about this? Am I good enough? Blah, blah, even though I was. So I just started teaching, and my first ever student was Anton, that guys have probably seen. And when I started working with him, I realized, oh shit, I actually do know a lot.
Yeah.
Because when he would ask me questions, I'm like, oh, you don't know that? So it was like getting over that. And then the more content I put out, the more I worked with people, the more I started helping people, the more I realized, okay, I do actually have value to add.
Yes.
So that helped me build the confidence and the belief in myself. And then once I had that, it was stepping into like a leadership identity. So when I first went traveling to Bangkok and I met up with other closers for the first time, a lot of them were newer to the space. And I was there for like 4.5 years at that point. So even then I noticed I was giving them a lot of advice and like kind of leading the group in a sense. And from there, like, especially when I was overseas, that just really kept elevating to the point where then I, held a mastermind and I had like 6 other closers there and I organized the villa, I organized the events, the dates, and it's like, okay, Orlando's organizing this. And then a few months later I did another one, like, and over time, like all of that just compounded to put me in a position where, yes, I can lead people.
Yep.
And then managing the sales team with Zach, and then Closers Cult kept growing. So those were the 2 biggest shifts, I'd say, imposter syndrome and then leadership as well.
So once you identified that you wanted to be a leader, then you started to create the environment where you could do that. So you started, I guess if you break that down tactically, you noticed that you wanted to change from where you were to becoming a leader. And then you created so I guess for anyone listening, then you created the environment, right? Reach out to either a friend or somebody in your network that you think you could add value to. And then you slowly start to stack the evidence that you are a leader, because then you're helping somebody.
Yeah.
And you've pretty much built on that consistently over time.
Yeah. The more I worked with more people, the more I helped more people, the more I grew confidence in myself that, okay, I am actually adding value.
Yep.
And even now it's still hard. Like I'll still get messages from people that it's like I have a guy, Gabriel, like he's in Bali now with his best friend, like they're living in a villa, both doing sales. And he was thanking me. He's like, bro, you literally said this would took 6 months. It took me like 2 months. You're the fucking man. And I read that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. But there's still even a little bit of like, oh yeah, but did I do that? Like, did I really help him? And I have to like remind myself, even Anton will say to me sometimes like, bro, like cut yourself some slack. Like you're fucking changing people's lives. But I have to like really look at it and like remind myself that yes, I am. So it never really goes away, to be honest. Like it's still there to an extent, but you just got to keep proving it to yourself. And it's kind of good that I have that, because then it motivates me to keep getting people results.
Yes. Yes. I remember hearing, you may know this because I lost a lot of weight, like 40 kilos. And I guess where I'm going to tie this in is people talk about when you change your identity, sometimes there's a lag time of like how you actually feel, like in terms of like your personality and the way that you show up, like consistently without thinking about it, like for up to 18 months. So like even when I lost the weight at the start, like I still had like tendencies, like a fat person will like put their like shirt over their chin when they take photos, for example, or like you'll always do this, just stuff where I don't have to do that anymore. But the character actually takes time to follow up with your actual identity, because you can start to change your identity bit by bit, but then your character sort of like has to readjust. And that's probably something that you're sort of working through now, right? Because you have helped people. But the thing is like, I guess there's more evidence from your body and your like intellectually of like not being that person, but for the last 6 months you have been. It's just going to take time for it to catch up, right?
Yeah, there's always a lag. Like the person who wants to be healthy that's not healthy, like they make decisions like an unhealthy person right now. But for them to become healthy, they have to make decisions like a healthy person.
Correct.
Before they are that person.
Correct.
So there's a lag, because even when they're making choices like, we're having dessert, like, do you want a piece? Oh no, I'm good. Or, oh yeah, just a little bit, as opposed to like, yeah, 100%, no leftovers, right?
100%.
Like when you go through that change, there's always that lag where it's like, oh, this feels weird. This feels different to who I'm used to being. And it's the same in business. Like when I started like leading people or giving advice, I was like, this is kind of weird that people are asking me for advice about this. But then you just do it and you do it and you do it. And then over time, it just becomes who you are. But yeah, with any identity, like that's always going to be the case. There's always going to be a lag. Even right now, I was like looking at my wardrobe like over the last month, and I was like, like who is Orlando? Like, how does Orlando dress?
Yes.
I was like, okay, Orlando dresses nicer. Like, so even over the last month, like not getting like super expensive brands or anything, but just like style wise, I was like, okay, I want to start dressing nicer. So that's like a new identity, where I'm used to just wearing like singlets and shorts, like, and thongs, like everywhere I go. So,
100%. Yeah. That's a good point you make. 'Cause I find that, identity, there's like, there's like layers to it, like an onion, and where people can be consistent in one area, they may be poor in others, right? I know for me, at least, using an analogy, I'm like pretty locked in on my fitness, but sometimes I might get a bit silly with like spending money, if you know what I mean, for example. But then being a well-rounded person, at least for my definition, is having like that discipline or like that consistency all across like every aspect of my life, from like relationships to finances to passion or to like to work as well. And it's something, when you just mention that, it's interesting because you can be doing real. I know for myself, I can catch myself doing well in other areas, and then all of a sudden, like I just blow out in this other area. And it's like, how do I consistently have that all locked in, right? So like having like good style, good finances, great skills that I can provide a good income, and then great relationships, and then also be like an investor. That would be like a well-rounded way that I'd like to be. You know what I mean? And that's different for everyone.
No, I've had the same thing. Like if I had like an amazing week financially, then I'd go and like binge eat. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It like, if you look at your stats, right? It's like in GTA when you have your stats, it's like strength, stamina, speed, blah, blah, blah. It's like, one goes up and then one has to be down and then you level it. But it's like, I think over time, if you just like keep leveling it up and then it'll drop and come back and
Yes.
overall, if you can have them all consistent, that's the goal.
For sure. Something I learned in a previous podcast is like when you want to level up to that next level, you have to go 100% in. And then once you've identified that new baseline, then you can create systems to maintain that baseline. And then you can put effort into other areas of your life. And that was like a good reminder because sometimes you need that 100% effort or attention just to get to that level and then set the foundation. And then you can redistribute that energy somewhere else.
Yeah, you master the skill of that thing and then you can learn, to master something else. Yeah.
For sure. I think the identity shift is massive because for me this year it's being an investor over a spender. And then how I've, I guess, created the actions that create that life is then investing in this podcast, then also investing a little bit in crypto, like not much, but just enough where on paper, I am technically an investor because I'm spending this much money a month on the podcast and this much money a month in investing. And something from Alex Hormozy recently goes, where you spend your dollars is actually a reinforcement of the character that you are and your identity. And an analogy that he uses is that one time he went to the shops and he was like overhearing this mother talk to their two daughters that they're going to have to save their money up to spend money on makeup for when they become a woman. And he was just talking about like that idea of that, like she's planting the seed for these like two girls that they are going to become like women once they start spending money on makeup, and that's when they're going to be transferring and ever like almost evolving into that next stage of life. And he said that that's the same with everyone though. Wherever you spend your dollars is reinforcing the person that you say you are or that you're not.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I've never thought of that. Like that's actually brand new, but it makes a lot of sense because I even think like on the things that I spend my money on, it's like, editors, coaches, like content creation, marketing, like sales, like all this stuff. And it's like, what you spend your money on is who you are. It's like where you spend your attention, energy flows, right? It's like where you spend your money, energy flows too.
100%.
Like, that's really interesting.
It's another way to like reinforce the person that you are, right?
Yeah.
If you're spending like say a portion of your money, like you said, on editors and coaches and education, then you can use that as evidence to remind yourself of who you are or who you're becoming.
Yeah. That's why it's like a balance between like, you hear people say like you should buy nice things, you should, go to nice coffee shops, buy the business flight, whatever, so you can experience the wealth and you become that person. And I agree with that to an extent. Like obviously you can't be stupid and then just waste all your money trying to be abundant.
Yes.
But I definitely
I've been there.
Yeah, there is part to it though. Like I flew like on the way back from Thailand to Australia, I flew business class for the first time ever. Awesome. And it's not like a flex. Like it was a dumb money financial decision. Like it was like $3,500 to go from Bangkok to Brisbane when I could have done that for $800. Like it was a dumb financial choice. But I was like, okay, you know what? Let me see what it's like. Let me see how I feel. Let me experience it. And to be honest, like I could do economy pretty easily. Like it's, people talk about it like, oh, once you go business, you can't go back. It's like, nah, it's pretty easy. Like you can do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's always like a balance of like, how much do you experience wealth and like spend your money on that identity versus like being smart, because it's like, dude, I could have just put three grand into ads,
Yes.
right? Like, would that have grown the business? So
100%.
there's always a balance.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think it's context driven. So I think you're right, and I agree with it to an extent as well. I think someone that's maybe where you are right now, that wasn't enough of a pull to like elevate you to the next level. But if somebody who was maybe, let's say if you go back to Orlando that was about to build close his cult, and then you took that business flight class, business class flight, then that might have been enough for you to go like even harder into the business.
Maybe.
Because you weren't necessarily there yet.
Yeah,
You know
maybe
what I
I'd
mean?
already established that identity to an extent that it didn't really
For sure.
affect it as much.
Yeah. Like, cause I know, like, you hear people of like getting the McLaren or getting the BMW. It's also different for everyone too. For someone that's buying the car that they've been thinking about for 7 years, for the other person, it's like fantasizing of a business class. For somebody else, it could be staying in $1,000 a night like hotel apartment that gives them that rev up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's always going to be different because some people like to hang out with people, other people like cars, other people like toys.
Yeah.
Everyone, it's all context.
I think for me, I've learned it's like accommodation and experiences. Like if
Yeah.
I stay at a nice hotel or a nice villa, like,
There you go.
bro, when we went to Koh Samui and we were at like this sick villa, like that week was so cool. Like, and I felt like, yeah, I'm a beast.
There you
like,
go.
this is the place. Like because you can visually see it.
Yep.
For me, that was more of a thing
There you
than
go,
like the
yeah.
flight.
So you almost like have your thing there, because then what it could be next is like staying at a resort where there's like billionaires.
Yeah.
With the B, right?
Yeah.
You like pay for 2 nights somehow, and then say you meet somebody who's like managing $100 or $100 million company or something, and then you go, oh, I want to be here more often, right? The brain goes, I need to be in these places like twice a year,
Yeah.
for example. And then all of a sudden you come back home trying to work out how the fuck do I work out
Yeah.
to stay here like once every 6 months for a week.
Yeah.
You know?
That's why I love traveling so much, because you meet other people that are traveling, and you meet a lot of business owners and online, people. Like I met one guy that made like 50K a month selling fucking land. Like, what was it? It was like garbage. It's like garbage disposal or something.
Right.
Like garbage disposal packages.
Yeah.
Making 50K a month.
Wow.
And then he invested a bunch into crypto as well. Like it completely avoids like Australian tax, like set up all this stuff. And I'm like, damn, like he's doing it selling garbage. Like literally selling garbage.
Yeah.
Like how can I not get there? Like,
Yes.
Yeah, it just builds your belief of what's possible. So traveling's one way to do it, but you can do it anywhere. But yeah, like surrounding yourself with wealthy people.
Yeah.
That's like, that'll help a lot too.
Yeah, I'm a big preacher of travel. Ever since I went when I was 18, it's something that I've been trying to tell people. I've got to be a bit careful, because you become like a bit of a preacher almost. Like you go travel, because it's not, everyone isn't like wired the same way we might be.
Yeah.
So I have to take that into consideration. But exactly what you just said, when you travel, you meet the guy who's selling garbage, or you meet someone who's like selling a component for like a shower base. So it's making like 30K a month. And it's just like, wow, these people exist.
Yeah.
There's some people out there doing some weird or boring businesses that are making more than doctors and lawyers.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great way.
Yeah.
What was the first trip that you did post breakup?
Bangkok.
Bangkok.
Yeah, so it was a one-way flight to Bangkok.
Yep.
I booked the Airbnb for a month.
Yep.
And didn't have any plans after that. I was like, I'm just going to go.
Yep.
I like the thing is, so it was a funny time because I was good at sales, but I wasn't making that much money in that current role that I was in. And like I didn't have much savings. So I used my credit card to buy the flight. Like I went into debt to go to Bangkok. And again, this goes back to the faith that I mentioned before. Like I just knew it would work out. I had no idea how, but I was like, somehow this is going to work out. I just like, I can't describe it. I just had this feeling like you have to go, this intuition. So I did. And then, went to Bangkok. That was the first place. Met a bunch of closers there. Started seeing like, oh, this is what traveling solo is like. Was working at the Airbnb, like learning even little things. Like I was used to having like my secret labs fucking stand-up desk and my Rode mic and the 2 monitor setup and like this whole thing, to a MacBook and some AirPods. And like, that was it. So even just little things like that, I was like, oh, this is what it's like working while traveling. But Bangkok was the first place. And then I did a month in Vietnam and a month in Bali. And that was like the first 3-month trip that I did.
Yep. Yeah. Was that Thailand trip, Bangkok trip, just after we met?
Pretty much. Yeah, it was like a few weeks after.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember you saying like, I'm going on a trip, and I was like, oh yeah, sick, and that was that trip.
Yeah.
It's always fascinating the situations you put yourself in when like your back is up against the wall.
Yeah.
But when it's like that, you find yourself actually getting more done per se.
Bro, every time I have my back up against the wall, I just find a way to make it work. And it's like, you can look at it logically and be like, oh, it doesn't make sense. Like, it just does. Like, I don't know how, but if you genuinely have to make 10 Gs or like whatever, your brain just starts thinking of different ways that you didn't think of before. Because it goes into survival mode almost in a good way. Like, you don't always want to be in survival mode and like stress, but it's like, fuck, like I need to make this work. Like, how? It just starts thinking how, and yeah, you just find ways. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's the emotional charge I find. You know, like you put yourself in a weird position, and you know you can get out of it, and then you have to get out of it.
Yeah.
And then you're put in a situation where there's no other options, right?
Yeah.
It's the burn the boats mentality.
Yep.
And it's like, well, I have to make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, who was Orlando when you were a little bit younger? Like, you talk about moving away from your current, I guess, moving towards a leader personality and character traits. Who was Orlando like 15, 16, like the build up compared to where you are now?
Completely different person. So when I was growing up, like, so we moved quite a lot as kids, and my mum and dad were like on and off together. My mum had some mental illnesses and things like that, so we moved quite often. We were like gypsies, like every year, like different city, like Melbourne, then Perth, then Brisbane, then Sunshine Coast. Like every year we moved.
Wow.
And so that was like good in the sense that it taught me to make friends at every place I went to, but it was also bad because maybe I didn't learn how to like just settle in one place. Maybe that's why I like to travel so much today. Who knows? Like maybe I'm used to that. It's ingrained in me.
It's baked in.
Yes, but when I was in high school, like pretty bit of a loser. Like I was like short guy, big nose, pimples. Like I was covered in acne, and that really hurt my self-confidence. And I was just a big follower. Like I would just try and follow the cool kids, try and do what they did. Like from grade 8 in high school up until grade 10, complete follower, like degenerate at school. I remember I was, doing a history test, and I just didn't care this much that the guy gives me the test. I write my name and I hand it back to him.
Yeah.
Didn't even bother to look at the questions. And he goes, "That's it, eh?" I was like, "Yep." And he was like, "Okay, cool, mate. Cool." And then took my test back. I got an E on history.
Yeah.
Like, I just didn't care. And then I was so much of a follower that, like, we'd go to, like, abandoned warehouses and just, like, be delinquents and just, like, break shit for no reason. Anyway, so we did that, and I got arrested one of those times. And, like, literally, I got arrested, and then my dad came to the station, and I was like, oh fuck, like this is bad. And my dad was so disappointed in me. Like I'd never, like, it was the pinnacle of like Landel, because he calls me Landel, he doesn't call me Orlando. He's like, Landel, like you fucked up, like this is bad. So he grounded me for 9 months.
Oh wow.
Like couldn't do anything. So right around that time I started to get into personal development. Like I was watching a lot of feminist videos just like for entertainment. And I saw like this was right around the time that feminism was like blowing up.
Yep.
And I was just watching funny videos on it. And I saw Jordan Peterson's debate. And then from there I started watching Jordan Peterson. And I read, the first book I ever read was 12 Rules for Life. And that honestly like changed my life. Like started fucking telling the truth more and like living life in a meaningful way and finding my purpose and looking into the Bible and fucking the Gulag Archipelago and like all this shit. Anyway, so long story short, then I just like I was waking up at 4 a.m. Like I was allowed to go to the gym. So he let me do that. I went to the gym before school, rode back, studied before school, went back, then caught the bus to school. Like I was just dialed in from like grade 11 and 12.
So you found Jordan Peterson at like grade 11?
Yeah.
So what's that, 16?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I just dialed in, was going to the gym a lot, studying. I got much better grades. Like I went from like D's and C's to like B's and A's. And then I continued that until I finished. And then it just spiraled from there. Like, started getting into cold showers and reading books and, meditate. Like I was meditating like every day in high school for like 2 years straight. And And yeah, I just dialed in. But up until that point, like I was completely different.
Yep. Yeah. Was there a little bit of, I guess, were you like a little bit angry at the world when you were younger before that point?
I was, yeah. It's actually a really good question because I never thought about it that way. But yeah, I was a bit angry at the world. Like, I don't know. I think maybe because like the relationship with my mom, or my parents like splitting up a lot. Maybe I had like more of a victim mentality where I was like, oh, poor me. Like, you know, I see my friend, like he's got a loving mom and like good relationship dynamics. I'm like, oh, why can't I have that? Like, maybe I was a bit angry at the world. I don't know, but I think I just switched from victim mentality to like, okay, what can I do to make this work? Like, yes, maybe I'm not close with my mum, but there's also people that don't have any parents. Like you can always compare to better, but you can always compare to worse as well. So just going like, okay, what can I do to just make this the best that I can?
Yeah, I think perspective is a powerful tool. And like you mentioned, you can compare to better, but you can also compare to worse.
Yeah.
It's been something that's helped me in some of my darker times. Like, I hope this doesn't get taken out of context, but like literally, like if I've been times where I've had there's like 2 years ago, I had like $5 in my account. And I had like a partner at the time, and I was just thinking, how the fuck have I got myself in this position? And I would compare myself to people that are like starving in Africa, not to like say that's not bad, but just to really like emotionally get myself in a state where like I need to make shit happen, because there are people out there that have got it way worse, and I got myself out of that situation. But there's been other times where I'm just in a real in the dumps a bit, if you know what I mean. But comparing myself to people that are in a much worse situation than me has always allowed me to propel myself forward. This is saying creating systems not to get back down to that spot, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a bit weird because you don't want to always compare. You don't want to compare yourself to other people, but sometimes I've done that too, where you compare yourself to people who are worse than you, and it helps you. But then you don't want to compare yourself to people who are better in a sense. Like I still get inspired by people that are better than me, and like if I see a guy with a 6-pack, like I don't compare myself, and I'm like, oh damn, like lucky him. I'm like, oh that's sick. Like he worked real hard for
100%.
that. Like how can I get there?
Yes.
But a lot of people, when they compare from a place of envy or jealousy or lack of, instead of being inspired by it.
Yep. I think it's a frame change personally. I think because I'm very similar to yourself. I like to see inspiration in things, and try and understand that. Well, at least for me, I try to see everyone as equal, which means that then I have an opportunity to be able to understand what was the skills or the effort required to get what they got, and that mental frame helps me because then everything is achievable.
100%. I was watching a podcast with Layla Hormozi and Jack Neal, and she was talking about building a $1 billion company, and she was talking about the same thing. She's like, well, I know that billionaires, they're not lucky. They just know certain things that I don't. They have certain skills that I don't.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, so what skills can I learn to build a $1 billion company?
Yep.
And that's the best mindset to have with anyone. Like even if you're starting at 0 and you just want to get to 10K a month, or you just want to be able to work online, even if it's only like 5 or 6K a month, and start traveling, like just what skills do you need to learn to get to that point? Not, oh, he's lucky. Oh, I wish I could do that. It's like, okay, what do they know that I don't?
Yes.
And then just learn that.
Yep. Yeah. And Alex Hormozi, Layla's partner, as we all know very well, he calls it ignorance debt. So like if you want to make $1 million a year, you need to pay down $1 million in ignorance debt, either in time, like sweat equity, or you need to start paying for courses to get access to the information that you don't know. Sometimes it might take you like $75,000 to work out how to make like 100K, but then you know how to make 100K. You know what I mean? And then you need to start investing into the next level of ignorance debt to get to the next level.
Yeah, that's an interesting term, ignorance debt. Yeah, it makes sense. Like I've spent probably 100 grand in the last like 3 years on courses, mentorships, and like again, like is it all the smartest thing to do? I actually think it is, but maybe people disagree. But because I just think like if all of this is going to help me make more money long term, it's going to help me learn skills, or it's going to help me learn certain things that would have taken me longer, that's 100% worth it.
Yeah. That's the concept right there.
Yeah.
Right? Like you pay down with, usually you pay down with time or money regardless, right? So it's like if you pay down with money, you can then have more time to do either the thing with the skills that you have, or you can use them skills to then do other stuff, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's up to you how you want to pay down that. Because otherwise it can take 10 years to, work out something.
Yeah.
And then there's a guy called Vin. He's a
The Asian guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen him. Yeah.
Yeah, and he talks about a really great story where he connected with a psychologist who has been like in the profession for like 30 years, and he paid her $9,000 for a whole day to spend with her, and then she was like scrambling because she had no one ever offer her 9K, and she spent like apparently in his words like a month trying to like just condense all this time into this one day.
Yeah.
And then he walked away from that with 30 years of experience, and he had to pay $9,000.
Yeah.
He's got a whole career,
Yeah.
if you know, if experience,
Yeah.
in one day.
Yeah.
And then it's like, if you view it that way, then you can literally grab, over a 10-year period, you can have literally like 300 years of experience if you grab 10 people and you pay them, 5 to 10 grand each.
I think that's a big difference between people that get stuck like at that 0 to 1 stage is the skepticism. Especially in Australia, we're so skeptical of people who have made it or people who are selling a course or selling a mentorship. Like we're so skeptical that it actually holds a lot of people back. And I see it on calls, like not just for Close Call, but even for, the business coaching offer that we have where people have never done something like that and they let that skepticism hold them back. It's like, what do you have? Like they look at it from the initial cost perspective. Obviously we know sales, but it's like, they look at it as like, oh, 5K, I'm going down. It's like, mate, you're trying to make 10K a month. Like that's 120 grand a year for 5K. Like, is that not worth it? Like that's where so many people get stuck. They don't connect the long-term ROI to the initial investment.
Yes.
But they'll go to uni, invest 50 to 100K and not make money for 4 years.
Yes.
But we've socially accepted that.
Yes, that's right.
It's so weird.
That's right. No, 100% it is. I think it's just like trying to create the frame for somebody to like understand that logic and just framing it up so they can sort of get that. But a lot of the time they just view it very in a short-term manner. What am I losing instead of like what am I gaining? Especially if you increase the time horizon, it's much easier to then be able to deliver that ROI to somebody.
Yeah. 100%.
Like over a year or 2 years, and again, you can use that too. Like if you want to make 10K a month, how much money has somebody invested to work towards that? If they haven't invested any money, then how can they expect to learn anything? If they haven't invested any time, then it's just a dream at this stage.
It's like we said, it's time or money.
Yeah,
like you choose what you want to pay.
100%. Have you found with people that are in your closest cult, I guess moving over to that, what's some of the things that these people have got? Say they've made that choice. They're at the 1 now or a 0.5. And what are the most common mistakes you're seeing with people that are they're on the way, but they're maybe just not, some things aren't clicking? What's the most common things you're seeing?
They've been told that like the questions they ask are super important, which I agree with, but they focus so much on what they ask that they don't focus on what they're listening for, as in what answer they're looking for. So everyone asks questions on the script, but they don't know what answer they're looking for. So they'll ask like, oh, what's making now the time? What's making a priority now? And the person will say, oh, I've got more time now. Oh, okay, sweet. And then they move on. It's like, hang on, they've got more time now. Well, that's a belief that they have about time. What I look at that and go, okay, well, they're telling themselves that they didn't have time before. But everyone has time. It's just what's a priority for them. So this wasn't as much of a priority for them back then. So what's shifted where now this is enough of a priority to make time? That's how I look at it. But a lot of people at that like 0.5 stage, they just ask the questions on the script, maybe even in the right tonality, but they don't actually get the answer they want. And that's still, even with guys that are crushing it in sales, like the difference between someone that's doing really good and someone who's like really great is still the level of the answers that they accept. Because I can't remember where I heard this, but the standard you tolerate is the standard you accept. It's the same with like leadership and management. Like if someone's not hitting dials and you tolerate that, you're setting that as the standard. And it's the same with prospects when you're on a sales call. Like you're training the prospect how to talk to you. Like even in the first few minutes, I was reviewing one call, and if they're just going back and forth like hot potatoes, salesperson asks a question, prospect gives a short answer, then salesperson scrambles and asks another question, short answer. They're training them to answer like they're playing hot potato. But if in the first few minutes you ask a question, they give you a short answer, and then you leave silence, and then you probe again, you're teaching them, hey, I'm not going to settle for your shitty short answers, subtly. Like you're training them how to talk to you. So it's the same with the answers. Like if you just accept surface level answers, the prospect actually loses respect for you because they go, oh, he doesn't actually care what I say. He's just asking questions on his script. But if you actually listen and you probe until you get the answer you want, they actually gain more respect for you because like, oh, this guy's not just settling for my shitty answers. Like, he actually wants to get to the bottom of this. So, in short, biggest thing is knowing what answer you're looking for and not moving on until you get it.
That's a really good point. I like that. I like that a lot because I guess it's very common for people, I even myself in my own sales career, to look at the script and then read it off. And not a lot of people have that ability to create rapport within like the first 10 or 15 seconds. That can be a learned skill too. Because sometimes the people that do have that skill, they can disarm somebody really well, but then they forget the script.
Yeah.
And then other people are reading the script off and they haven't built any rapport. And then the guy just gets off the call and he's like, I don't know what happened. And it's, I guess, to your point, he's playing hot potato with them.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you find with people that, is tone something that people aren't picking up on or they are picking up on these days with all the information out there?
Yeah, it's something most people are picking up on, but I think a lot of the time it's exaggerated, like especially from certain sales trainers, like
Jeremy.
Yeah, like Jeremy Minor, for example.
Yeah.
Like, I love a lot of his stuff. Like his future pacing part, you know, great. Like I use some of it as even in what I do. It's all backed in psychology. Like I went and saw Jordan Peterson live in Brisbane, and he was talking about behavior change, and it was the exact same process as NEBQ or, you know, the way we run through our sales calls. It's like, okay, where does someone want to be? Why do they want to be there? How would it feel? What does it look like in specific detail?
Yep.
And where do they not want to be?
Yep.
What happens if nothing changes? Like, it's the same thing. But yeah, Jeremy's really big on tonality, and tonality is important, but you have to have tonality mixed with your authenticity and the way you naturally speak. Because if you just ask questions like Jeremy does, oh, do you like what you're doing for work? How does that make you feel? Like, if you don't talk like that, normally people are going to see through that BS. So you got to have tonality with how you naturally speak. And another thing that people mess up on is like, yes, we can get wrapped up in all the tactics of the sales calls and the questions and all that, but it's also just who you are off the sales call. Like when I am not on my shit outside of the sales call, that's when I can't hold people accountable. When I'm on my shit in my personal life, I'm taking risks. I'm backing myself. I believe in myself. I have faith. And then someone else can't do that. They have that fear and they're like, oh, well, how do I know if it's going to work? And it's like, yeah, you don't, but you got to back yourself. But it's like, if I'm not doing that in my own life, I cannot tell someone that with conviction. So it's also who you are off the call. Like, are you the person that's able to hold someone accountable to their goals and their dreams? Because if not, you'll struggle.
Yep. Yeah, holding them accountable. Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. It's fascinating because I guess there's so much information out there these days too, and I always find it interesting, like where do people still fall short, I guess, when they're out, because there's almost too much information.
Yeah.
I know for me, I like to cherry pick like 2 or 3 people at a time, and I'll only like I'll try and like construct my Instagram, so I'm only like looking at certain people's feeds until I feel like I've gotten enough, and then I might, this is like for the big figures, like for Alex Hormozy or like a Gary V or people like that, until like I've extracted enough information, because I was smashing Jeremy's content myself.
Yeah.
And some of it worked, and then some of it, I've pretty much walked into that myself, because I have a certain personality and I like to like connect with people a certain way. And like some of his tactics work, but some of them just come off like not like me at all.
Yeah.
But like,
It's the same with any sales trainer. Like even me, like no one should try and sound like me because they're not me, and no one should try and sound like you. Like you should. Now, there's a balance, right? Because I've had people ask me, well, Leno, what if I sound like a fucking loser, like off the call? Like, you know, what if I don't speak in an engaging way? Like, well, how do I sound like me? Well, it's like, well, then you've just got to improve who you are then. Like, you got to improve how you speak naturally then.
Yes.
Because I wasn't always good at speaking. Like I said, I was a bit of a loser, like, you know, in high school and stuff. Like, I had to learn that. But, yeah, so, you know, like anything, it's just a skill that can be learned.
100%. Yeah, I think it's a good point though. You said like who you are off the call can make a massive difference and how you show up in your work as well, especially in a job like a role like this where you are closing people. And if you're not that type of person that is, you know, got your own shit locked in, it's hard to have conviction, which is I guess what we talked about this a little bit off just before we started. How do you have conviction when you're selling something? Is I guess either you are like who you say you are to the bone, or you really believe in like a product that you have. Like them two things for me, at least in my experience, help convey conviction so easily.
100%. Yeah, if you can get on an offer that like is going to help someone. Like on our offer, I'm really lucky. We have like awesome fulfillment. Like the people get sick results.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to have that conviction. But if your offer, like maybe the offer's starting out, there's a little hack you can do to have conviction, which is to just put the responsibility back on the person. Because at the end of the day, any program can work for someone. Even the shitty ones. I've done shitty ones. I've done great ones. They can all work. But who does it depend on? It depends on the person going through the program and if they make the most out of it. Like even if a program's not, fantastic, if you put the responsibility on them to get as much from it as they can, you can still have that conviction and you can still have that certainty, even if the product's like just starting up. That's a little hack you can do in the meantime as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. In terms of, I guess, things you learned from last year, what was like some of your biggest learnings that you learned from 2024 that you want to bring into, say, not even this year, but the back end of this decade? Because that's sort of how I'm thinking of 2025. I'm thinking back end of this decade.
Yeah, that's a cool way to look at it.
Yeah.
I think the two biggest ones I had was gratitude and not giving a fuck what people think.
Yep.
And it actually happened on mushrooms in Bali.
Beautiful.
Because like, yeah, it was like a few days before I went back to Brisbane. And that was like to wrap up the 3-month solo trip that I did. And I was coming home like a different person. And yeah, I did mushrooms on the beach with a few friends.
Love that.
And like, it sounds like really hippie or whatever, but I did enough that I didn't have like visuals, but I still had like breakthroughs. And one of them was gratitude. Sounds cringe, but genuinely just like on the beach, feeling the vibes of people in Bali. Like I could just feel how happy everyone was. It was a beautiful scenery. I was like, man, like I'm so lucky. Like even the problems I have day to day, they're first world problems. Someone's got it worse. And I've just kept that since then. Even if it's a shit day or whatever, I'm like, well, I'm lucky to have these problems.
Yeah.
Like, so that's one. And then not giving a fuck what people think. That was the second one, because I was just on the beach and I used to care. Like, I think it comes from my childhood. Like my dad's great, but he was a little bit judgy, and like my whole family was. Like, it's just the culture of it. Even when I first started posting on Facebook or Instagram, I was like, oh, what are they going to think? There was actually a period where I blocked them because like I didn't tell them this, but I blocked them because I didn't want them to see my posts. I didn't want to have their judgment. But when I was in Bali on that day, I just looked at everyone going through their own life, walking, doing their own thing. I was like, man, everyone cares about themselves. Like, and that's fine. Like, I care about myself. You care about yourself. We're all our own main characters in our own story. And that's fine. So why do I care so much what the side characters or the NPCs in the movie think? It's like, I'm the main character. Like, all that matters is what I think. So that was the second breakthrough I had. And then when I got home, that's when I started pumping content.
Yep.
That's when I was like, every day I was posting something. I was just putting myself out there. And then over time, it got better. But those are the two biggest things. So gratitude and just not caring what people think.
Was that your first time doing mushrooms on the beach in Bali? Third?
Yeah. Well, first time in Bali on the beach, but third time total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Biggest breakthrough you've had, do you think?
Yeah. It was all leading up to that point. Like, I kind of knew those things to an extent. And then that trip just really flipped a switch for me. Because sometimes you need extreme examples or extreme emotions to create those breakthroughs. Like, that's why sometimes on my coaching calls, I can't just tell people what to say. Like, I have to make people feel a certain way. Same on sales calls. Like, sometimes I have to say, bro, you sound like a fucking robot right now. Like, you have to get people to be like, oh shit, yeah, that was bad. So they actually change it. Yep. It's the same with, if someone's really overweight and they go to the doctor and the doctor's like, hey, like, if you continue, you're going to get liver disease or you're going to have a heart attack or whatever. That's when they make a change. So yeah, sometimes you need extreme examples to like break you through it. And that day was just one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. I think sometimes you get to a point where you know a lot of stuff, but then it's like, how do you actually integrate that? And for anyone listening, you don't have to do mushrooms to do this, right? Like, but
disclaimer.
Yeah, for sure.
Not promoting that.
Full disclaimer. You don't have to do mushrooms to integrate things into your life. However, I'm somebody who's done mushrooms a fair few times and acid a couple of times too. Yeah. And if you do it in the right environment, them things that maybe you've been thinking about for months on end, or inherently, but it's not fully integrated into your character, sometimes that type of experience will just help solidify that, because you already know it, it's then just thinking through it and then looking around yourself and sort of taking it all in. And then when you come out of that experience, you have that, it's ingrained in you now.
Yeah.
Because I know some of the lessons that I've had from my trips are still with me too. And it sounds like that they've stuck with you since then.
Yeah.
And you'll be reminded in little subtle ways.
Yeah.
In every little way. Even if you come off the beaten path, you'll come back.
Yeah.
You'll come back. Now, you're on the online space and you talked about it before about, I guess, Australians, but also everyone being a little bit, I guess, curious, or they don't necessarily believe what's actually happening. How do you actually navigate that, like, as a business owner? How do you navigate that?
So people being skeptical about,
skeptical is the word that I couldn't find before.
So how do I navigate people being skeptical about like high ticket online space, that sort of stuff?
Yes.
So if I've had that where someone will say something like, oh, I've seen these online courses and there's just that reputation that it has, so I've just been a bit cautious. So what I do is, if someone says that to me on a sales call, I just lean out. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get that. I used to think the same thing. At the same time, like, for you, have you not completely given up on online courses and online mentorship then? Oh, no, I haven't completely given up. Like, I know there's some good ones out there. And then you just get them to double down on that.
Yep.
So you just lean out. It's like, okay, well, I mean, why not just not look at any courses and just consider them all a scam? Like, why even bother looking into them? Oh, because I know there's some good ones. Okay, well, what did you see from us that had you feel like we might be one of the good guys? Like, and just put it back on them.
Yeah. And keep it playful as well.
Yeah.
Sure.
You got to keep it cheeky.
Yeah.
It's like with any of those like hard questions, you got to keep it cheeky and keep it playful.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it can get taken the wrong way.
For sure. It's also easier, I feel like, to pivot. Like, at least when most talks about this, it's easier to pivot when you're sort of like being playful, especially when you're handling an objection too, especially like a hard one.
Yeah. I saw a clip from Hormozy the other day on handling a partner objection, and it was like, yeah, no worries. You go ask your wife, I'll go ask mine if I can sell it to you. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, it keeps it playful.
100%. And then he's like, well, I'm not going to do that. And you're like, exactly. now sign the contract. I guess another one I find, and you've called these guys out before, we can always cut this out too if we need to, but what are your thoughts on, like, say, other closing people like ABC or people like that in the space?
I won't comment on specific companies because I'm just cautious of defamation laws.
Sure.
But there are particular companies who they'll call it like digital drop shipping. And basically what it is just high ticket sales, but they call it this fancy term, digital drop shipping.
Yeah.
And I've gone through the funnel, like I know people who are in it.
Yeah.
And I've talked to people who work with the company.
Yeah.
And they've told me that 80%, 90% of the people who actually make decent money, they're just making money from selling the mentorship.
Yes.
Not from actually doing high ticket sales.
Yes.
Because high ticket sales is selling for an actual company, an actual business, an actual online education platform or course or mentorship, and making commissions through that.
Yeah.
Not by selling people how to get into it and making affiliate commissions.
For sure.
Now, if you want to call that affiliate marketing, sure. People have done that. People have done that with, water filters or, like athletic greens or whatever. Like affiliate marketing is a thing. I'm not knocking that. But don't call it digital drop shipping and then sell people to get into high ticket sales when you're making all your money from affiliate marketing. And I've even seen in particular people's content, the work for certain companies that now they're pivoting. Now they're like, oh, you find a product and then you sell that, and that's high ticket drop shipping. It's like, it's just BS. So it kind of it's kind of a good thing though. Like Patrick but David talks about choosing your enemies. It's like, I've just chosen them as one of my enemies. It's like, I've got to save people from these guys. It's like when someone joins, I'm like, well, another life saved. Like I had a guy who was looking at a particular program that I know is terrible. And he was like, yeah, I was going to join that, but then I saw you, and then he joined mine. And I was like, honestly, I got so much fulfillment from him because I was like, man, I actually just saved your life. Like, you're about to make a really bad decision. So I've just chosen them as an enemy.
I think that's a great choice from an enemy perspective. And I guess it's also great that you can get a lot of fulfillment out of that too, because that's obviously why you do it, right? And then the consequence of that is you get rewarded financially.
Yeah.
But I remember hearing about like these digital product guys, and I was like thinking about it. I was like, because I've talked to a few of them too, and most of it was like either 50-50 or it was more like 70-30, 80-20 in terms of most of the income was actually from getting people in there.
Yeah.
And I think there's, like you said, there's nothing wrong with affiliates. Like that's a real way to generate business. But I think doing affiliates and then calling it something else, which it's not, right?
Yeah.
It's like that makes that look bad.
Yeah.
And because like I guess the online closing work can get a little bit of a hard rap sometimes, but at the end of the day, like sales is a function of a business.
Yeah.
And it is just like pretty much you've just got people that can operate from anywhere in the world that can close deals, and that is a real thing.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, having people that are using it and calling it something else, it gives it a bad name. It gives it a bad shtick. And then the average person just thinks that it's like even more of a scam.
And that's what happens. Like this happens with a lot of different offers. Like this happened with ecom, right? Like it started off as drop shipping, and then like now it's ecom, and it happened with that too, where there were real legit, and there still are legit businesses, legit brands that just have an e-commerce store, or they do drop shipping, and that's fine. But it got wrapped up in this thing with like the guys who make all their money from selling the dropshipping course, not actually doing dropshipping.
Yes.
And it got this bad rap.
Yes.
And I feel the same thing happening with high ticket sales, unfortunately. It's like a lot of people sell the dream of work fucking 3.5 hours a day on a beach, sipping a Kool-Aid, closing a 10K deal, one a day, you make $1,000 a day, 30 grand a month. It's like, well, hang on. You got to get to that point where you're skilled enough to actually do those hours. In the beginning, it's going to take time. You got to put in the reps, but no one talks about that.
Yeah.
So all these people are coming in being sold the dream, then they don't do that, and they realize, oh shit, I actually have to put in a lot of time in the beginning to learn this skill, and half of them quit. And then someone asks, oh, you tried high ticket sales, didn't you? Yeah, it's shit. You have to work like 10 hours a day, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, that guy just had a bad experience, unfortunately, because he got set the wrong expectations. Like I always tell my guys when they come in, if someone's brand new and they want to transition and they're like, oh, well, how long is it going to take? Blah, blah, blah. I always say, like, if you want to come in and make 10K a month in the next 3 months, you might do it. But I'm going to tell you right now, I am not telling you that will happen. Like I set the expectation, this might take 6 to 12 months. And you've got to be okay with that. Yep. Now, can it come sooner? Absolutely. I've seen it happen. But have the expectation that this is a skill that's going to take time.
100%. I think that's a really good point there, because a lot of people do get sold the dream. And it's like anything, like any new job or new role that you do, I feel like it's expected that you have to put in more effort. But unfortunately, if you are sold the dream into getting into this thing, then people they mix the mastery level of the job. Like say someone that works 3 hours a week that makes 5K, like 5K a day or 5K a week. That's somebody that only works that many hours. That's somebody who's like been doing it or has the skill honed, or they've been doing it for years. They know exactly what they're doing. They only have to work 2 hours a day. Yeah,
they've got leverage because they put in the time when they started off.
Correct. Compared to somebody who's coming in who thinks they can get away with that, it's like no, it's not going to be the case. Yeah. It's not like anything. When I first started my job as like an appointment setter in the corporate world, I put in like 10-hour days for like 4 months because partly because the previous job I got, I actually ended up losing because I didn't hit my quota and I had a lot of pain and I got told to get into tech sales. So then when I got into my current job, I was like, I need to make this work. So I made it work. But there was a lot of time where I had to put in extra hours. Then when I got leverage on how to like cold call better or how to write better copy emails, then my work days all of a sudden went from like 10 to 8. And then sometimes I can even get down to 6 because I've got other systems to remove the manual labor of doing some of these things.
Yeah, you get more efficient.
Exactly right. And then all of a sudden I'm working a 6-hour day and I can do more stuff. But there was 4 months of 10-hour days and 11-hour days before that no one talks about. Right? But then, someone asks you like, oh, how come you're doing X, Y, and Z? Or like, how are you doing X, Y, and Z? It's like, well, I'm doing this and this and this. And they just get stuck with where you are in the journey right now. Yeah. And then they think that they can just like skip the last 2 years of work or the last 5 years of work or 10 years of work. And it's a journey for a reason.
Yeah, it's like that mountain or the iceberg analogy.
Yes,
it's like people just see what's above the water, but they don't see all the stuff that's below it.
Yeah,
that took them to that point.
100%. On the topic of sales, I'm really curious with this one. What was the hardest objection you've had to learn to overcome?
Oh, probably like I have to pray to God about it. That's a pretty hard objection.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was an objection that people would give.
Yeah. Or, some people are like super religious, so they won't make any financial decision before praying. So that was a tough one. And to be honest, it's still tough. But the way to try and handle it is kind of like a partner objection. because God is technically a partner that they've got to chat with. So it's like, okay, no stress. I mean, like, if he wants you to do it, if you get that message from him, what would happen next? Oh, I'd sign up. Okay, why would you though? Oh, well, because of positive reason, blah blah blah. Okay, cool. What if you chat with him and he doesn't want you to do it? Like, how are you going to learn these skills so that you can make more money and have more freedom and XYZ? Oh, well, negative outcome or this and that. Okay, so you just kind of treat it like a partner objection.
Yeah.
But, I'll be honest, like, I'm not perfect. Like, those objections are bloody hard. Like, and sometimes you can't get over it. It's just the way it is. But that's the hardest one, I'd say.
I didn't even know people would come up with that. I mean, when you said that, I don't know, anyone watching was like, I was like, what? I did not expect you to say that. I was expecting to say, like, I need to think about it, or, the typical one.
No, those are easy.
Yeah.
That's a hard one.
For sure. And, like, the one that's, like, non-religious, like, what would be the second hardest one that you've had to, like, overcome? At least personally, like, not, like, to teach, but, like, just something that you had to, the one that took the most amount of rehearsal or integration to be able to overcome easily.
So for me, it wasn't actually a specific objection that was hard for me to overcome. It was a certain character, like a certain type of prospect. So I used to really struggle with hot women, like selling to hot chicks. That was really hard for me because I didn't have much like female attention when I grew up.
Yep.
So when I was first in sales and I was talking on a Zoom screen to a hot girl, I would find it so hard to like talk normally and have confidence and just ask questions. It really threw me off. So I had to learn. Like, I had to go and cold approach. I had to go and just like talk to more girls and just realize, okay, these are normal people, to the point where then when they're on a sales call, I can just talk to them normally. But before that, like, I idolized women so much because I didn't have much attention. I didn't have much experience with them. And so it was more so the type of person that I was really like struggled with.
Yep.
I know other guys, like, for them, it's like A-type males, like dominant males or whatever.
Yep.
And a lot of the time with like, when you have a certain type of prospect that you find it harder to sell to, it's probably something in your personal life. Like, it could even be maybe my relationship with my mum. Like, who knows? Maybe that affected it, right? But with other guys, when they struggle with the A-types, like, I had one guy, and the reason he struggled is because his dad was an A-type and he didn't really have a solid relationship with his dad.
Yep.
So I said to him, okay, talk to your dad more, like, have more conversations with him, get used to it.
Yep.
And he did, and then he got way better at it. So again, it comes back to, like, oftentimes the objections, the things you struggle with on the sales calls might be down to something off of the sales call. So yeah, that was more the hardest thing I had to overcome, was that type of prospect.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
No, it would be difficult. I guess it's like anything. There's going to be, everyone's got their crux. How did you manage overcoming that?
Just real life experiences. So when I was traveling, like cold approaching women, like going and just talking to them, talking to more strangers, hanging out with more girls, just realizing, talking about normal shit, even in like a non like flirtatious way or whatever, but just talking about life in general with women and realizing, oh, they're just normal people, which might sound super obvious to a lot of people. But for me, like, I didn't really talk to many women when I was younger. Like I said, I was a bit of a loser. So I didn't have much attention or much experience with it. So for me, that was really difficult. But yeah, just getting more of that real life experience helped.
Exposure therapy almost, just like getting used to hanging out with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, because it takes time. It's even like when you level up your network, sometimes you can be hanging around with people that, like, maybe make more money or drive a certain car or whatever it may be, or just have like crazy skills. And I know for myself, if I'm in some of them rooms, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I should be in here, if you know what I mean. But you hang out with these people long enough, and then you do offer value in that group in one way or another, however you do it. And then you realize that this is like a new baseline. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, that's normal. Yeah. And it's the same, I guess, with beautiful women on the Zoom call as well. Yeah. Right? What's the future hold? We're in, I guess, like I said before, I like to think of 2025 for me at least is, I'm not thinking about like this year. I'm thinking about the back end of this decade. I'm trying to expand my time horizons to even bigger. So I'm 25, I'll be 30 when this decade closes out, and I want to be in a certain spot. What's on the future for you in the next 5 years?
Good question. I think continuing to build Closers Cult, like I really want to expand that and just make closing great again, like it says in my bio. But genuinely, like mainly Australians and New Zealanders, because there's a lot of support for guys in the US and Europe, but mainly Aussies and Kiwis. Like we got to stick together. There's not actually like there's a lot of businesses coming up in this space, but Australia is like a 5-year lag to the US, you know? So helping that and just helping people do what I did. Like I said, before sales, I was a loser. And like one of my subheadings of Close to Cold is like master sales, master life, because I genuinely think it helps you in every area of your life. So just helping men, young guys, become better through sales, because there's so many benefits to it, right? Like money's one, you can travel, you can get new experiences, and you just become a better person.
Yep.
So helping people do that and really growing that. I'd like to run more in-person events in the future. It does take a lot more headspace than I thought it would, running the first two, but that's a passion project of mine. Because like a lot of people don't know this, but both of them I lost money on. Like I didn't actually make money from either of them.
Oh, true.
Like when I say it's a passion project, like it's genuinely because I just really wanted to do them. Like I love bringing people together that are in sales and like having that environment. So doing more of those. And then 5 years, yeah, just good question. I haven't even really thought about 5 years. Just continuing to build the empire, continuing to learn the skills, you know, even like content creation now I've been learning over the last 6 months. So that's like marketing, which is something that's like less familiar for me. So getting better at that, just keep stacking the skills and yeah, who knows 5 years, honestly. I haven't actually thought that far ahead.
Sometimes you don't need to. You just need to think like day to day, and that'll create your future.
Yeah, I just kind of think like overall direction, and then I'll figure out specifics as I go.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. It's going to be an interesting time. I mean, I'm curious. This is a little bit off topic, but I think the next 4 years is going to be great. Well, as long as we don't go into a war with Trump coming in. But what do you think? What do you think with Trump coming in America? Do you think the tide's going to be net positive?
Yeah.
Net negative.
Yeah. I think the whole world follows the US.
Yeah.
So I think America's going to crush it in the next 4 years, and I think the world will follow.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity over the next 4 years.
I'm in the same boat.
I think business is going to start booming again. More people are going to get good paying jobs. There's going to be more money in the economy. People are going to spend more, invest more. I think businesses will thrive in general, and that will just help everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm really positive about the next 4 years. Yeah. 100%.
No, fantastic. And out of curiosity, like you've probably across the AI stuff at the moment.
A little bit. Not as much as I'd like to be.
Are you using any AI like at all in your day to day?
Yeah, I use ChatGPT quite a bit. Like I use it for content, brainstorming ideas, like summarizing things. It's more just I use it for research as well, just to summarize things.
Yep.
But I definitely like to be across it more.
Yep.
There's a friend of mine, James Lawrence, in the sales space. Some people might know him. He's really across the AI stuff.
Yep.
So I've actually bought his course to learn a bit more about it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I'm not as across it as I'd like to be.
Yep. Has he got like 60K followers? No, I think it's.
I don't think so. No, he's bigger on Facebook.
Is he?
Yeah, it might be someone else we're thinking about.
Okay, I'm thinking of a different James potentially. But
yeah, he's got like a black and white photo.
Yeah.
Lives in the sunny coast, but
Yep.
yeah, he's got a course on it, and I still need to go through it. But he's well across it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I always find it fascinating how different people are using AI, because the people that use it a lot or use it not as much, but obviously it's a great tool. Do you use it to write out your content or just to give you ideas? And
more brainstorming, because naturally I'm not as much of a creative person.
Yeah.
So I get it to give me the initial ideas, and then I take it from there, just to like get my brain in like a creative state.
For sure.
And then sometimes I'll refine it with ChatGPT. Like I'll train it how I speak, and you know. So I use it for content sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Because I've been seeing you've been pumping out the content, dude. It's been good to see. So it's like ramped up over time, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's getting better and better and better.
I feel like I'm right at that exponential curve. I feel like I'm right there where it's about to... Like lately I've been getting like 30, 40 new followers a day.
Beautiful.
It's like... Because I had like 2 videos go relatively viral. Like one got like... When I say viral, like 30... I'm talking like 30,000 views.
Yeah.
But those are the only 2 videos I had like over 10K. And yeah, more and more people are starting to come through now, more and more leads. And so, yeah, I think it's, but I've been doing it for ages. Like, bro, when we met, like I said, on that account, I had 200 followers.
Yep.
You know, now it's at like 2K or something, but that took like, 7, 8 months of like consistently posting. Like for the last probably 4 months, I've posted like minimum once a day, at most like 3 times a day. Like the last month I posted 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Like, I'm bound to blow up.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
there's,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm just trying to make it impossible for me not to blow up.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I love that. You're like putting in the reps, and eventually time will catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think Instagram probably it's starting to realize who you are, like who your market is, your target
Yeah.
market. Eventually, when one clicks, you'll add that exponential video that goes even to like say 100K or 150K.
Yeah.
So no, it's beautiful. For anyone who's listening and wants to get in contact with you, Orlando, how do they get in contact with you?
Easiest way is Instagram. So
Yep.
just at orlando.santucci.
Yep.
It's 2 C's, not CH. On Instagram, and then in there I've got my YouTube if people want to see. I post like free breakdowns of my sales calls, so you can literally watch me sell like 15K, 24K deals. And then I post clips on my Instagram from my coaching or my sales calls as well. So if you want to see that I actually know what I'm talking about, I'm not just talking fluff, you can. I always say like you can just watch it and you can decide if you think it's good or not. I just put out the raw content. So
Love that. That's
yeah.
awesome, mate. Fantastic. Appreciate you coming on, brother. That was
Likewise,
awesome,
bro. Thanks for having me.
Anytime,
Cheers.
brother.